Good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I'm so glad that you are here with us this morning. It feels like such a big crew today. Welcome, everyone. I already smell pancakes. This is going to be a very long service. Our reading this morning is by Nancy Schaefer, called In the Beginning. It features another Kate, 3 Kates today. Kate is teaching the kids about dinosaur air. That air you breathe, that air you have inside you every time you take a breath, that's dinosaur air, she says. Dinosaurs breathed it. The kids' eyes are very wide. They take deep gulps of air just to have more dinosaur air inside them. The air we have is all the air we will ever have, Kate says, so we have to take good care of it. The kids gulp less. Consider the air already inside. Kate tells more. Actually, she says, we're all cousins. The kids look at each other, disbelieving, believing. You? We, all of us, Kate says, way back, began as cousins, way back in the beginning. The kids whoop, clap each other on the back. For the rest of the day, they savor air and call each other cousin. After our spoken prayer and a time of silence, we will sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life, which is also printed in your order of service. Spirit of life, open us to the magic of the world around us. Each day, our minds and hearts and imaginations shut down a little as we watch the news, learn of heartache, as we are reminded to be reasonable, as we stress about bills and symptoms and duties. Life is hard. Remind us to make room for wonder. Remind us to be grateful for the small acts of mystery and magic that surround us when we are open to seeing them. The constancy of the sunrise, the diamond sparkles on the bay, the serendipity of running into the person you were just thinking about, the subtle messages left for us to find and interpret, maybe from those who have journeyed beyond our knowing. Pry open our hearts to those moments of connection. We who are responsible, we who know better, we who work until we are exhausted, we who have critical decisions to make, help us to throw a window open to the universe and whatever winds of inspiration and comfort may blow through to caress our lives. Amen. When I lived on the North Shore, I was a member of the Universalist church in Essex. It's a wonderful little church right near the water like ours, full of artists and musicians like ours. And just like us, they have a talent show and auction each year. One of the wonderful couples in the church happened to own a whale watch company. So at the auction one year, I bid on and won tickets for a whale watch off of Cape Ann. I was very excited. I invited my whole family to come up for it. It was a morning whale watch, so they basically had to get up at the crack of dawn to make it to Gloucester in time. It was cold that day, bitterly cold, and we were bundled up against the wind. The kids were excited at the start, and we all had our eyes set on the horizon as we made our way out of the harbor. The tour guide showed us some props on the long ride out to sea to keep us entertained. She showed us what baleen looks like and taught us about how whales filter their food inside their mouths. As the hours progressed, we did not see a single whale. Well, I think there was one sighting way off in the distance, but I missed it. And it didn't get any warmer either. Truth be told, it was a pretty miserable trip. My family was not exactly happy with me. The tour guide on the boat felt so bad that she gave everyone rain check tickets so that we could all go out another time to actually see some whales, but you really couldn't pay us to go back out at that point. Now, a friend of mine went out on the very same whale watch boat the very next day, and she had a completely different experience. They saw tons of whales. When she started telling me that they also ran into an entire school of dolphins, and that at one point hundreds of dolphins were jumping out of the water all around them, racing the boat, I just had to stop her. Life is just not fair sometimes. One day soon I will try again to go whale watching. We live in a great spot for it. Sometimes you can even see whales right from the beach. Even though I am still a little bitter, I know how magical it is to sight a whale. How many of you have ever seen a whale? Wow, we are a lucky group. I have another question for you. How many of you have seen the movie Boyhood? Some? Let me tell you, those of you who have seen it and haven't seen it, about my favorite scene in the movie. The boy, Mason, is staying over at his dad's house. They have sort of an every other weekend arrangement. But the dad's house is not set up for that, and so the boy and his dad are sleeping on two couches in the living room. It's nighttime, and Mason is lying on the couch in the dark, trying to fall asleep. The dad is lying on the other couch, reading a book. Mason, who's probably about 8 years old at this point, says, "Dad, there's no, real magic in the world, right?" "What do you mean?" the dad asks. "You know, like elves and stuff. People just made that up." "Well," says the dad, played by Ethan Hawke, "I don't know. I mean, what makes you think that elves are any more magical than something like a whale? You know, I mean, what if I told you a story about how underneath the ocean there was this giant sea mammal that used sonar and sang songs? And it was so big that its heart was the size of a car, and you could crawl through the arteries. I mean, you'd think that's pretty magical, right?" "Yeah," says Mason after a minute, "but right this second, there's no elves in the world, right?" "No," says the dad, although you can tell that he doesn't want to. "Technically, no elves." So we live in a world with technically no elves, but nevertheless a world filled with miraculous creatures, miraculous things that happen every day. I wonder if it is because we are so bitter or hardened or disappointed from learning that there are technically no elves, that we often disregard the magic and mystery that is all around us. That's part of why I'm moved to talk about whales this morning, magical creatures. Whales are mammals, but they are fully adapted to aquatic life. You'll remember learning when you were about 8 that being a mammal means that whale calves grow inside their mother until they are born, and that they are nursed just like human babies. Whales are actually descendants of land-living animals, which returned to water after living millions of years on land. Whales breathe air. They use those blowholes on the top of their heads to breathe. So we're not just breathing dinosaur air here. We're breathing whale air. Let's take a moment just to deep breathe this whale air. One of the most incredible things about whales, of course, is their sheer size. The blue whale is considered to be the largest animal in the world. In fact, it's the largest animal that ever existed, even bigger than the dinosaurs. It can weigh 420,000 pounds and measure 100 feet long. A blue whale's tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant, and their hearts really are the size of cars. And whales are communal creatures. They have relationships with each other, and they value those relationships. They are extremely good parents, and whales even have best friends. Based on a 16-year photographic study, scientists have learned that female humpback whales not only make friends with one another, but reunite each year. They remember their BFFs and even find them across the ocean and among other whales. When a female humpback meets her friend, they simply float along together, eating and enjoying each other's company. And these friendships seem to have quantifiable benefits, since female humpbacks who hang out in this way are healthier and give birth to more calves each year. Here's another crazy thing. In 2007, a dead bowhead whale was found to have something very strange embedded within its blubber. Upon closer inspection, it appeared to be a weapon fragment that dated back to a patent filed in 1879. So this suggests that this bowhead had survived a whaling attack from more than 100 years ago. Scientists actually can't agree on the bowhead whale's maximum lifespan. Most die between the ages of 60 and 90, but amino acids in the eyes of bowhead whales suggest that the oldest ever discovered may have been up to 211 years old. And even with all our science, all our explaining away magic with numbers and formulas, we are still being amazed by whales. Just last week, scientists figured out that a western gray whale recently migrated 14,000 miles from Russia to Mexico and back. That's some vacation. Did you hear about this? It's the longest known migration of any creature, and it has totally blown away previous migration records. This female western gray whale named Varvara, where's our birthday girl? Apparently that's Russian for Barbara. She swam all that way in just 172 days, 14,000 miles. They know this because they have been tagging whales with electronic monitoring tags and then tracking them using satellites. That's pretty amazing too. Another amazing thing is that it appears that Varvara did not stop to feed during her journey. Apparently, she ate enough food in Russia to tide her over for half a year. What? It's incredible science like this that makes me think, hey, maybe Jonah really did get swallowed by a whale. Stranger things have happened. You remember that story from the Bible? Jonah was the reluctant prophet. He's the one that said no to God when God called upon him, who ran away when God told him to preach to Nineveh. He fled to Joppa, where he found a ship going to sea. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and lain down and was fast asleep. So the captain came to him and said, "What do you mean, you sleeper?" "Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us that we may not perish." When Jonah fessed up that he could not pray to his God to stop the storm, that he was actually kind of running from God, and that God had probably caused the storm to send him a message, the men didn't know what to do. Jonah told them to throw him into the sea so that the storm would cease, and they reluctantly did so. Some people think that was very big of him, but some biblical scholars believe that Jonah was just trying to kill himself. But God had other plans and sent a great fish, a whale, to swallow Jonah and save him from the sea. Jonah stays 3 nights and days in the belly of the whale before being delivered to dry land. This time, Jonah agrees to go to Nineveh. And yeah, wouldn't you? And he convinces the people there to repent from their ways, and God spares them all. A whale of a tale from the Bible. And what about that other famous whale story? It starts, "Call me Ishmael." Ishmael and Queequeg board the Pequod, a whaling vessel from Nantucket, and go to sea with the mysterious Captain Ahab. The crew sets out on Christmas Day. When they finally see Ahab, they realize that he is balancing on a false leg made from a sperm whale's jaw. He announces his intention to pursue and kill Moby Dick, the legendary great white whale who took his leg. He sees the whale as the embodiment of evil. They travel around Africa and into the Indian Ocean, hunting whales and processing them for oil, always asking each passing ship for information about the great white whale. On one ship, a crazed prophet predicts doom for anyone who threatens Moby Dick. A series of misadventures ensues. Finally, Ahab sights Moby Dick, and days of chase and destruction follow. On the 3rd day, Moby Dick rams the Pequod and sinks it. Ahab is caught in a harpoon line and meets his death. The rest of the men are caught in the vortex created by the sinking ship and pulled under to their deaths. Only Ishmael, who was thrown from the boat at the beginning of the chase, is far enough away to escape the whirlpool, and he alone survives. Such stories. These symbolic whale narratives have captured the imagination of our culture, become iconic. And here's one more, a real whale tale. You might recognize it from a YouTube video that has gone viral the past few years. I'll post it on our Facebook page this week for those of you who haven't seen it. Michael Fishback, who is actually married to a friend of my family, spends 2 months on the Sea of Cortez every winter to photograph blue finback and humpback whales and to track them and observe their behavior in the wild. On Valentine's Day 2011, Michael and his family and a few friends were out on a small boat in the Sea of Cortez when they came upon a young humpback whale that appeared to be dead. They floated nearby for several minutes, but they didn't see any signs of life until suddenly the whale rose in the water and exhaled. But they could tell something was wrong. So Michael eased into the water with his snorkel gear to assess the situation. Swimming right up to the whale, he discovered that it was trapped in fishing netting. He tried to connect with the whale, to kind of communicate that he was not a threat. There were no words we could share, Michael remembers, but I wanted to let the whale know that we were there to help. The sight of this large and beautiful creature trapped and so close to death was almost overwhelming. And Michael freely admits that he was more than a little scared, knowing that the whale could easily kill him with one panicked movement. The situation was bleak. The tail was entangled in so much gear that it was weighted down a full 15 feet below the surface. Both pectoral fins were pinned to the side of its body, and the nylon gill net went all the way up the whale's back. The whale really was panicking. With his hands, Michael succeeded in getting the dorsal fin free, but that's all. He swam back to the boat to radio for help, and he was told that perhaps in an hour someone else might arrive. But by then it would be too late. After very little debate, everyone on the boat decided that they would stay and try to get the whale free of the netting. I can't really stress to you what a small boat this was, and that our friends Michael and Heather had their very young son Galen aboard, as well as friends. But everyone wanted to save the whale. So they worked to pull net aboard the boat as they cut the net as fast as they could, using the one small knife that they had. After great effort, they freed one of the pectoral fins, and then they paddled around to reposition themselves. But sensing a little bit of freedom, the whale started to swim and proceeded to take them on a Nantucket sleigh ride through the Sea of Cortez. Eventually, the whale tired and came back up beneath them. They continued to grab net and haul and cut until they freed the second pectoral fin. When the whale grew exhausted, they began cutting the net off of the powerful tail fluke. It was slow work and dangerous. Finally, after about an hour of exhausting cutting and pulling, they made the final cut. She was free. On the video, you can see the whole boat exploding in celebration. "We saved a humpback whale!" Michael shouts. The whale slowly swims away, but in 500 feet, she breaches high into the air. All the way back, the whale shadows them, giving them the best whale watch they have ever seen. For an hour, she provides them with an incredible surface display, dozens and dozens of breaches, fin slaps, and tail slaps of celebration. My favorite part of the video is when young Galen says, "Mommy, I know what she's doing. She's showing us that she's free." Now, why am I telling you all these whale tales? Why are whales a subject for worship? This week we celebrated Earth Day, and we've been talking about the Commit to Respond environmental justice movement that the Unitarian Universalists are taking part in. And this caring for Mother Earth, caring for God's body, caring for the resources of future generations is holy work. There's no doubt in my mind. But the piece of that we lift up today is a playful and mystical appreciation of the mysterious and magical aspect of creation. Part of our spiritual life is just to be in awe of creation. There is no higher form of worship. What if I told you a story about how underneath the ocean there was this giant sea mammal that used sonar and sang songs. And it was so big that its heart was the size of a car, and you could crawl through its arteries. I mean, you'd think that was pretty magical, right? Listen. Amen, and blessed be.